So it's minute after 2, so we will start this meeting of Judicial Branches Access to Justice Commission. I want to welcome you all to this first meeting of the commission in about 2.5 years. This is pretty much a new group. There are some familiar faces from the former commission, Jamie, Jan Toretto, Ty, and Krista Moy. I'm missing anybody who was here before. I've seen Tim on a bunch of committees, so I can't recall if he was on the committee in the past, but thank you all for coming. We're going to go around and do introductions in a couple minutes, but I first wanted to say that getting the commission going again was important to the Chief Justice. Was something even though he's retiring, we wanted to make sure we had started up again. And that it was part of what he wanted to see the branch continue to do after he retired. So he asked me to take over the chair of it after Justice Kahn became Judge Kahn on the Second Circuit. So I was happy to do that. The commission was founded, I was trying to remember the exact date, but I think around 2010, we formed the commission. And we had kind of the guts of an Access to Justice Commission within the judicial branch before that, with our language services, our ADA services, our court services for self-represented parties, and our pro bono committee, but we didn't have an Access to Justice Commission, and Chief Justice Rogers wanted us to form one at the time, so we did. Judge Norco was the first chair of the commission, and it served as kind of an umbrella commission for those other services. And it accomplished a lot, particularly in the first 5 or 6 years. And then I think we maybe lost focus a little bit on where we want to go with things. So this is kind of a fresh start. The idea behind the commission was to select people who are doers and not just followers. We met and were very deliberate about choosing all of you to participate in the commission, because you all have, at one point in your career or another, dealt with access to justice issues, whether you're on the front line working in the courthouses, whether you've worked with us on pro bono matters in the past, whether you're in legal aid. All of you have some experience with the issues that we need to address, or hopefully we can address. So with that, I'd like to have us do introductions, and I'll start. My name is Bill Bright. I'm the Chief Judge of the Appellate Court. I've been a judge for 16.5 years now, 10 years on the trial bench, and then almost 7 years on the Appellate Court. As I mentioned, I've been involved with the Access to Justice Commission since its beginning. I was the chair of the Pro Bono Committee starting in, I think, 2009. I worked closely with Krista on developing programs to help make it easier for the bar to provide pro bono services through 2 pro bono summits. We worked with legal aid in developing the cdprobono.org, which is a kind of one-stop shopping for lawyers where they can go online and find pro bono opportunities. And we worked on signature programs for law firms. Ed Heath, who's not here today, in future meetings, we can talk about the work that Robinson and Cole has done in the restraining order side of representing people. And we had a short-lived fellowship program that we got corporate sponsorship for. And I think Jamie and Jan will remember that, where UTC, General Electric, helped fund fellows who worked at legal aid for a year or two, but for a variety of reasons, it didn't get beyond the first couple of years. In addition, I've worked on the Rules Committee, and we've worked on limited scope appearances to make it easier for attorneys to do pro bono work, and loosening up the in-house counsel rules to make it easier for in-house attorneys to provide pro bono work. So the idea behind this commission is to kind of think of ideas like that, where we can improve access to justice and actually implement programs that will have sustainability. So with that, I'll just kind of go around and ask everyone to introduce themselves and talk about their role in this space.
Thank you. So I'm Fiona Doherty, and I am the Deputy Dean for Experiential Education at Yale Law School. I'm also a professor there. I've been teaching for like 12 years now. Before I started teaching, I was a federal defender in Manhattan. And I have done criminal work with students in a clinic. I run the criminal justice clinic at Yale. And right now we're doing defense cases, resentencing cases, and parole revocation cases. But I also oversee experiential education generally at Yale. And obviously, I'm very interested in where the greatest needs are to help inform what kind of clinics we support at Yale and the kinds of opportunities that we give our students. And I am delighted to be here and to meet all of you.
I'm Claudia Jalok. I'm the Deputy Director with the Judicial Branch Law Library System, and I've been with Judicial for 24 years. Working on the front lines in the libraries with the self-represented parties, both in person and also all the remote services that we now offer.
Hi friends, my name is Brian Galini and lucky enough to be the new Dean at Quinnipiac. I joined you from Salem, Oregon, where I was the Dean of Willamette University College of Law. And for 4 of those years, I worked with a variety of stakeholders on creating a new pathway to attorney licensure called the Supervised Practice Pathway Examination that was then partnered with apprenticeships in the highest need rural spaces. So quite a bit of familiarity with the issues and how to maybe link them to other initiatives in and around the judiciary.
Hi, everyone. My name is Moy Ogilvie. I am the managing partner of the Hartford office of McCarter English, which is a private law firm. I'm also on McCarter's pro bono committee. And then as a practicing attorney for over 2 decades, I've handled many pro bono matters.
Hi, I'm Krista Hess. I'm the Director of Court Operations with the Judicial Branch. I'm also a member of the Access to Justice Commission from its inception, I think. Before that, we have been staff, but I have staff to the Pro Bono Committee as Judge Bray alluded to. And I'm fortunate enough to know the branch, as you all know, has an eye towards access to justice and access of all types, whether it's language access or physical access. So I'm fortunate enough to work for the branch and to get to implement some of those things and to be inventive and creative and make the courts accessible to everyone. Nice to see you.
Hi, everyone. What Krista said, except I'm Tyara, Executive Director for Court Operations Division. Very excited to be here, and thanks to Ray for having me on again. We're looking forward to whatever we can progress in. We feel that we have a wide variety of wonderful SRP assistance and programs, and from housing, mediation, all the way through. So happy to be here and looking forward to whatever else we can do to improve and enhance our programs that we offer to support access to justice.
Well, I'm PJ Deek. I work for Court Operations, the Deputy Director under Krista under Ty. I'm new to this committee, but if I had to guess, I would say number 5 under self-represented parties, access and ability to navigate technology is probably where I'm going to end up fitting in.
I'm Travis. I kind of worked in a lot of different places, a lot of self-reps. I think there's 3 things that I could probably bring to the table, and that's perspective, perseverance, and kind of proximity to things, because I've always been about a lot of kind of self-reps. And I think we can all, I'm delighted to be here, but I think there's also a great transformation that we can make towards therapeutic jurisprudence for the access to justice part piece and this holistic approach to civil, family, criminal law, things of that nature. But, normally I work in housing, and we see a lot of access to justice kind of issues, but it's kind of like a 2-way street, right? The access to justice that the patrons don't have to be employees, but also the access that the employees can kind of give to the patrons. So I think, us kind of creatively thinking of different ways to kind of change the auspicious alternatives to the current approach is kind of where I hope we can all, work together to be supposed to happen. Sorry.
Thanks.
I'm Walt Spader. I've been a judge for 7 years now. And before I was a judge, I probably worked in a lot of the volunteer attorney programs that this commission first created in 2010. And since becoming a judge, I'm currently presiding judge of housing, where I get to work with Travis and have the discussions that he just had there quite frequently with him, sharing ideas. So that's probably how both of us ended up here, because we're probably regularly sending ideas out to the branch of things that we see on the ground in housing, with Right to Counsel program that has come into place now, and a lot of the opportunities that are out there for attorneys to get more involved. I work closely with the law clinics that work within the housing and the foreclosure world. But I'm, I was happy to get this appointment, more so when I saw the list of people who are also appointed to this commission, knowing that there are a lot of people who are stakeholders who have a lot of great ideas. And if I can be any part of implementing some of those ideas to work towards the charge of this commission, like seeing guys like Travis, you just heard him speak. I think he just put himself on every committee, said right there. But these are the things we sit and talk about every day in the courthouse. So I'm glad to have a committee that we can try to implement some of those ideas.
Good afternoon. My name is Tim Sheeran. I'm a lawyer at Pullman and Conley. Started my Access to Justice involvement in 1988. I joined the CLS board, stayed there until I became president of that board, left, joined the Connecticut Bar Foundation, stayed there until I became president of the Bar Foundation, and I'm currently president of the Connecticut Bar Association, which has one of its primary missions, access to justice.
Afternoon, everyone. Ben Nissim. I'm in-house counsel for the Hartford, and both in private practice and at the Hartford, I've had the opportunity to work on a large variety of access to justice, not just pro bono matters, whether it be civil rights claims. I work with Lawyers for Children in America, representing children in the DCF system, and a variety of other opportunities, which I've had the benefit of and the privilege of with my employers and in my own interests, having the opportunity to continue to pursue. And it's just another evolution of the on-the-ground work and an opportunity to commit to system-wide efforts as well as the individual efforts.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Stewart. I am a Superior Court judge. I've been for 7 years. Prior to that, I was in private practice. As a judge, I should mention that I sat in criminal and family in Bridgeport. I presently sit in civil in New Haven. And when I was in private practice, I sat on the board of the New Haven Legal Assistance Association from 1996 to 2017. And I handled quite a number of pro bono matters in federal court and state court.
Good afternoon. I'm Adana. I'm the program manager for Interpreter Translator Services. I've been an interpreter with the branch for 26 years. I also co-chaired the LLP committee. So I had the opportunity to work with just Judge Khan, Judge Khan for so many years, and that was a great experience. I'm looking forward to serving here. Thank you.
I'm Jamie Bell. I'm the executive director of Greater Hartford Legal Aid. I've been a legal aid lawyer or executive director for 2 years. And while I'm a little bit weary, I'm also a true believer in what has been accomplished to improve access to justice and what can be accomplished.
Hi, I'm Rachel Reeves. I'm at UConn Law School. I joined the clinical faculty there 2 years ago. I'm really excited to be here with you today. One of the programs that I oversee is our pro bono program, but also I'm really excited to learn more about the needs of Connecticut and how, like our colleagues at the other law schools, that might inform our clinics and other opportunities for our students. I'm coming from the state of Maine, where I went to law school, where I practiced, where I taught for a really long time, and had a very good sense of what the needs were in that area. And I think that's really interesting about being in this location. So I just learned from all.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Collins. I'm going to email with you constantly. I am a caseload coordinator for the family unit here at Court Operations, and I will be the staff person for this commission. So any questions, concerns, just direct them to me.
You would affect me if you were like this. I'm going to go to people on the video because I know at least Jen is busy running a law camp right now. So Jen, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny Shukla. I'm the Director of Access to Justice at the Connecticut Bar Association. I've been in that position for coming up on 3 years now. Very excited to be part of this group and get to know all of you. Thank you.
Sandra?
Hello, everyone. I'm Sandra Lugo Jinez. I am the manager of the centralized ADA office here at the branch. We handle Title II of the ADA, which guides our interactions with the public. I have been with the state for 27 years, and within the last 10 years, 17 years, sorry, I've been handling all things ADA. So I know ADA touches all aspects of the branch, so I'm happy to contribute in any way I can. Thank you.
Roseanne?
Hi, everyone. I'm Roseanne Rush. I'm one of the members of the Civil Matters Unit in Court Operations. I've also been with the branch for 27 years. Currently, I supervise the court service centers and public information desks in our courthouses statewide. I also coordinate the volunteer attorney programs for civil, so foreclosure, small claims, and contract collections. So I'm very interested to see how we can improve access to justice for our patrons of the court. Thank you.
Jan?
Yes, good afternoon. Hi, I'm Jan Chiretto. I am the Executive Director of Statewide Legal Services. I'm a career legal services attorney, first in Massachusetts and now here for over 17 years. And I've thoroughly enjoyed being part of the Connecticut legal community and being part of a larger legal aid network. As you know, legal aid historically seeks to enlarge its capacities through collaborations with judicial, with the private bar, and with our own colleagues. So this is the perfect committee. I'm really happy to be back on it. It's good to see all of you, and I'm looking forward to this very much.
Judge Demiola?
Hi, everyone. Karen DiMiola, currently Superior Court Judge, sitting family law in Putnam, Connecticut. Awesome. I've been involved with pro bono for quite some time, sitting on this commission as well as the pro bono committee. Did a number of pro bono opportunities for law students. I was at the University of Connecticut School of Law for 23 years. In a variety of roles, so had my hands in a lot of pots, including the Connecticut Community Law Center and its original iteration and partnership with the Hartford County Bar Association, and taught a class on diversity and inclusion in the legal profession. And in that class, we also brought in access to justice and the ways in which certain communities may not have as much access as one might hope. I served as a member of the board of the Connecticut Legal Rights Project and focused a lot on access to justice for those with mental health diagnoses. I'm happy to be here.
Judge Rapillo?
Hi, I'm Chris Rapillo, currently a Superior Court Judge sitting Family Matters in Waterbury. Prior to that, though, I was a public defender for 30 years. The last position there I held was as chief public defender during the COVID pandemic. So it really brought home that was an issue of access to justice for everyone. And we were required to do lots of interesting, creative things to get people access to court, including camping out on the front steps of every courthouse to try to get people some information. I was also lucky enough to be involved in one of the first iterations of the Right to Counsel program for the restraining orders. So I'm happy to be here today to be able to see where all of this goes.
And Judge Thomas?
Good afternoon, everyone. Judge Cecil Thomas, Superior Court Judge for the past 2 years, sitting in Norwich, also hearing family cases. Prior to that, I spent 16 years at Greater Hartford Legal Aid as an attorney there, handling primarily housing matters, although we went wherever we needed to go for our clients. I also past president of the Connecticut Bar Association, where access to justice was a pretty significant focus of my bar year, including the creation of the Director of Access to Justice Initiative position that's held by Jen Shukla, and the creation of several new pro bono programs. I served as a subcommittee member of the Pro Bono Committee under the leadership of Moy Ogilvie and Judge Harmon, and was appointed to the Access Justice Commission as an attorney member, I believe sometime in 2022, and I'm glad to be back in this role. Was also heavily involved in the creation of the Right to Counsel, Eviction Right to Counsel program, so glad to see how that has progressed and continue to be a part of these efforts through this committee. So looking forward to working with all of you, and good to see everybody on the meeting tonight.
And then Ed Heath, who I mentioned earlier, in a very positive way.
Oh. So I'm sorry, first everyone, I'm sorry. So I'm a partner of Robinson and Cole. I spent my whole career at the firm. I run the firm's business litigation practice. I'm also on the managing committee. I could joke that I'm here because back in maybe 2012 or so, I served on the judicial branch's pro bono committee with Judge Bright. And about 2 years ago, I teased them and I said, if you ever chair the pro bono committee again, call me, I'll serve on it. So I think that's probably why I'm back, but it's really one. It is one. But pro bono is near and dear to my heart. When I was an associate, I used to pester the partners of the firm to tell them they weren't doing enough pro bono work. So when I made partner, they put me in charge of the pro bono program. And one of the first things I did is I reached out to all the different legal aid organizations in the state and said, how can we help you? So I met Jamie, so I met Jan, and we started a number of really great programs for our lawyers, including our domestic violence restraining order program. But I guess formally in the years since, in addition to serving on the branch's pro bono committee, I've been with Greater Hartford Legal Aid as a board member. I've been president of GHLA for the last several years until this January. I'm still on the board. I've been a board member of the Pro Bono Partnership, member of the board of directors of the Bar Foundation as well.
All right, well, thank you all for coming. As I think you all demonstrated with your introductions, this is all an issue that's near and dear to your heart. As I said, we're very deliberate in identifying all of you to participate, and I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to achieve a lot. Just a couple of ground rules for the meetings. All the meetings are going to be live streamed, and for whoever wants to watch them. We will have a public comment period, and all the meetings are open to the public. Our agendas and our minutes are posted on our website. And to the extent that anybody wants to come to our meetings, not a member, they're more than welcome. We hope to get input from people who are interested in access to justice who are not formal members of the commission as to what we should be focusing on and how we can accomplish our goals. So with that out of the way, the first order of business that we have is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting, which I was instructed we have to do, even though the number of people who were on the commission from that time were probably just a handful. So we have the meetings that were distributed to you by email. It's also made available here from November 4th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Moy will be moved. Is there a second? Second from Ben. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the minutes are approved. And that's okay. You can say it. All right, minutes are approved. Okay, so I want to talk about the goals of the commission. I'll tell you what my kind of hopes are, at least, or what my goals are, and then I'd like people to feel free to weigh in and tell us all what you hope to get out of the commission and what you think the commission can accomplish, can and should try to accomplish. You know, a lot of you, because of your experience, know where the obstacles are and know or have some thoughts on how we can get around them. And I think the approach we should take to all of this is to kind of think outside the box and be creative in our approaches and try to solve them. So with that, here's kind of what I would like to see us do over the next year plus at least. As I mentioned, the idea here is to actually do things. It's not to prepare a report or a number of reports that are going to sit on a shelf and collect dust and say we accomplished something because we prepared a report. A report doesn't help, maybe a step to providing access, but if that's the end goal, we're not creating any more access opportunities. Implementation is important, and that's what we should be focusing on. And it's not just implementing one-off programs, it's implementing sustainable programs. Things that, because there's investment by stakeholders, because there's investment by the branch, by the attorney community, by legal aid, they can be something we can look back on years down the road and see it flourishing and expanding. You know, we thought the idea of the fellowships sponsored by our corporate partners was a really good idea. I still think it was a really good idea, but we weren't able to sustain that. So if to the extent we can renew something like that and figure out a way to sustain it, I think it's great. But whatever we do, we should be trying to figure out a model that allows them to stay in place. In order to do that, I think there's a number of steps we have to do. We have to identify the current obstacles and assess the needs of the people who are being blocked by those obstacles. So in the subcommittees that we talk about, there will be some discussion of what are the needs. And I'll talk about the subcommittees that we've thought about. And again, I'm open to more ideas as to other subcommittees we might want to come up with, but as doing the need assessment, identifying the obstacles, and then thinking creatively about how we address them. And there really is no limit on the ideas that we can come up with. Really, really smart people in this room, really creative people. And I hope that we can come up with a lot of ideas and figure out which ones are implemented. Our work should not be insular. We need to engage with the various communities that have an interest in what we're doing. So this means the self-represented community who face a lot of challenges. It means the legal aid community and their clients, which demand for legal aid always exceeds by multiples the supply of legal aid. And then the providers, the pro bono attorneys that we hope we can recruit, the corporate attorneys, the state, the attorneys that work for the state of Connecticut. I remember when Attorney General Blumenthal was the Attorney General, he used to take pride in saying the Attorney General's office is the largest law firm in the state of Connecticut. So there's no reason, well, there are some reasons that limit the type of pro bono services they can provide, but it doesn't exclude them from providing pro bono services. The same goes with public defender's office and state attorney's offices. We need to engage with all of them. How do we do that? I'd like to see the subcommittees over the course of the next year have discussions about ideas and about implementation and move those ideas forward such that we can implement some of those with the idea of having an access to justice conference in the state of Connecticut, whether it be sometime in the fall of 2025 or the spring of 2026. I think that we ought to have kind of a deadline that we set for ourselves to actually get things done. And that it ought to be a reasonable deadline that gives us time to do the work that we need to do, recognizing that all of us have other full-time jobs, 2 or 3 other full-time jobs that we need to pay attention to. But my hope is that over the course of the next year to 18 months, we will be in a position to say, these are the things that we think are important. These are the things that we are already implementing. And these are the things that we would like to do. And then bring all of those stakeholders or people who have interest together at a conference to discuss where we go next. So we did that with pro bono. I thought it was effective with pro bono. I think that's helped the fact that we were going to have a conference and we needed to have some deliverables, help motivate us to get the ctprobono.org website done, because I was worried that we would show up and not have anything to talk about. And I think if we put that burden on ourselves, that this is something we're going to have to do, it will motivate us to make sure we get stuff done. So that's kind of what my goals are. The other thing that I wanted to mention to you is, which is a relatively new office, and I hope that it will remain an office of the federal government, as the Department of Justice has, under President Biden, established a Access to Justice division. And the Director Rossi, who spoke at the Fellows meeting of the Connecticut Bar Foundation in May, is heading that office, and we had a meeting with her. And they're doing a lot of good coordinating between the federal division and state access to justice commissions in terms of providing information, being kind of a go-between, and also developing their own ideas. For example, how to get federal lawyers to take on pro bono matters where they would be conflicted. And I've asked Director Rossi to send us that information so we might be able to adapt to use for our state lawyers get them to participate in pro bono matters. Whether that division stays in place at the Department of Justice, nobody knows, but it's there now. And I think it's something that as a group, I'd like to see us coordinate with on a somewhat frequent basis. So those are my general goals. I don't know if any of you have other thoughts about things we should be thinking about, or things that are worth approaching that's either consistent with that, or if you think any of those goals are either too ambitious or not ambitious enough, just don't make sense. Don't be shy. Anyone on the spot and calling anyone to make them say, but please think about it. The idea behind this meeting was to have it be kind of a meet and greet meeting, get an idea as to where we want to go, and then have our first work meeting in the fall. So we can discuss goals more then. We hopefully will have the subcommittees set up at that point. The subcommittees hopefully will have had their first meeting before our next meeting. And then we can kind of talk about how we're going to coordinate the work of the various subcommittees and kind of set progress points so we know that we are heading in the right direction. Anybody else on goals? Okay, so I want to move now to talk about the subcommittee. We sat down, Ty and Krista, Nicole and I, and kind of said, all right, what do we think would make sense in terms of subcommittee? And we provided draft charges that hopefully you all have of the 4 subcommittees that we talked about. And really what we tried to do is say, what can each group do that is somewhat different than the other groups, but will involve coordination with the other groups. So I'm going to start with legal aid. I think the legal aid subcommittee is in the best position to determine what the needs are. And I've met with a lot of legal aid providers a couple months ago. We talked about some of these. We talked about some of these issues, and it was a very productive meeting. I would really like to have all of the legal aid providers on the Access to Justice Commission, but then we need a stadium to get everybody here. So what we've decided is that we're going to do it on a rotating basis. Each year there will be 2 members from the legal aid community on the commission. This year it's Jamie and Jen, and then next year we'll identify 2 additional people. But the legal aid subcommittee would have more members than just members of its commission. And that's going to be true of all the subcommittees, that members of this commission will be members of the subcommittees. But I want us to reach out to other people to involve them in the works of the subcommittee. So I would expect whether it's Jamie or Jan or maybe both of them on the legal aid subcommittee, they would reach out to their colleagues in that area. But the idea behind the committee and doing the needs assessment is not going to be just the current members of the legal aid community, but others who see what legal aid or what the needs are, whether it's a self-represented population, the primary clients for legal aid, or modest means individuals, people who can afford something but can't afford to pay the going rates of most lawyers. So it might include someone from libraries. It might include someone from the law schools who are familiar with the clinic work. And it might include some of the attorneys in private practice, and it will certainly include somebody from the judicial branch who deals with self-represented parties on a regular basis. So that's the idea behind legal aid. As I said, there's a draft of the charge here. My hope is that once the subcommittees are formed, they will use these draft charges as kind of a starting point to develop a full charge for the committee. If they think it covers everything, great, but if there's anything you want to add or delete, that's fine as well. So the second is the self-represented parties access issues subcommittee. This is, although legal aid obviously deals with people who would like to avoid being self-represented, the idea behind this subcommittee is to understand for people who are representing themselves in their court system because maybe they can't afford a lawyer, but they don't qualify for legal aid. Legal aid has limited resources that can't represent everybody. How do we make it easier for them to navigate the system? It might be language access issues. It might be disability issues. It may just be understanding the court process. Logistics. How do you get people to locations? I know Karen who's sitting out in Putnam? Karen, yeah. It's not easy for people to get from Willimantic to Putnam. It's at least 2 buses, I think, and it's an all-day event. Are there ways that we can address those issues? Hours of operation. A lot of people can't get to a court mediation during work hours because they need to work. And if they're in a foreclosure, they need to make money in order to avoid the foreclosure or in order to get out of the credit collection case that they're in. So are there things that we can do with that? So again, the idea behind this subcommittee I envision as being a number of branch people, but also people who outside the branch see these issues, whether it's someone from legal aid or again, the law schools or the libraries or attorneys in private practice who might be able to help with that issue. Because unless PJ can solve it all with technology, which we're counting.
Sadly, you can't solve everything. No.
Yeah. The pro bono subcommittee, we've heard some discussion about that already. I think that we all envision Connecticut has 30,000 lawyers for a state of about 3 million people. That's a pretty good ratio of lawyers per resident. And sometimes we think that pro bono could solve everything if we could get lawyers to do it. It can't, but it can make a big dent. We've been successful. Firms like Robinson and Pullman and McCarter have developed signature programs where they've been able to implement that have shown an ability to sustain themselves. And how do we do more of that? So again, this committee would involve the lawyers from private practice, maybe Judge Stewart, who was in private practice and ran a firm, and has the legal aid background as well as people from the branch and from legal aid, and anyone else who's interested in the topic. And then the last subcommittee we identified was law library. So let me back up. So the idea behind the pro bono was kind of helping to meet demand that we've identified through the legal aid subcommittee, and solving that part of the problem, or helping to solve that part of the problem through pro bono. And then the law libraries and law school subcommittee is kind of a resource that's outside of the traditional lawyer-client model, in the sense that I know the law schools have those types of relationships, but it's not the traditional ones. We're using law students or recent graduates. If it's incubator projects, the law schools are heavily involved. And law schools, just by their very nature of being academic institutions, come up with a lot of the ideas that end up becoming practical in how we solve problems. So the hope here is to use that resource and law libraries, which is another way of providing access to people who don't have access or can't get to courts, but can get to their local library or to a law library, a way to help bridge the access to justice gap. So those were kind of the 4 subcommittees we came up with. One to identify needs primarily, but then the other 3 of figuring out ways to help solve those needs. As I mentioned, the idea would be for each subcommittee to kind of develop their own thoughts on this thing, but then we need to kind of cross-pollinate and share those ideas with each other to make sure we're all heading in the right direction, because they really do all tie together at the end of the day. Hopefully a cohesive program to increase access to justice. So having said that, does anyone have an idea of anything that we're missing in kind of this description of programs or subcommittees? So there are other subcommittees that we should be thinking about developing, or any ideas that I haven't mentioned that we could fit within any of those 4 subcommittees?
Were there other subcommittees in the prior iteration of this commission?
Yeah, it was somewhat different. We had more subcommittees, but they were, Krista, how would you explain them? More kind of ad hoc and not so much connected?
Yes.
So-
The boards are independent of one another.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, we had a pellet subcommittee, that really wasn't connected to anything, and it really never kind of developed anything, and even if it had, there was no sense of how it would tie in with everything else. If you actually look at the minutes from the last meeting in November 2021, you'll see all of the subcommittees discussed, because there was a report at the commission meeting from each of the chairs of the subcommittees. So the idea here is to maybe reduce the number of subcommittees and have them, get down to work and develop ideas that we can then, bounce off of the other subcommittees and then figure out how they work together.
Thank you. Because I don't know if this is part of the legal aid subcommittee, but one of the observations I've had over the years is that there's no quarterback in the state with respect to pro bono. Our foundation has its focus, the Bar Association does its thing. Access to Justice has been around for over a decade doing its thing. The branch itself does stuff. The legal aid organizations do things, and schools. So there's not a lot of coordination, and I guess there's no economies of scale that might be accomplished if there were better coordination and actually deliver more product, less expense.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, Tim. We, when we had the pro bono committee and we had our first summit and we did the ctprobono.org, I mean, that was kind of a first step in that direction of how do we make it easy for lawyers to find it, because there were so many ways, but we never developed that quarterback that you're mentioning, kind of a clearinghouse, for lack of a better word, to say, yeah, Chris.
Because to that point, when we had the pro bono colloquium back in whatever, for the Bar Foundation, 2017 or 18, whatever that was sort of one of the goals of that colloquium at the time. So James, I think Steve, Simon, sharing it, to say, and the pro bono subcommittee charge does address the provider need. At first, and it's like we said match.com, right? Like you're going on, you're saying, okay, I can do online stuff. I can only do limited appearances. I can't go, and you're matching programs with the needs, and therefore you're maximizing the attorney resources, and I feel like every conversation we have about pro bono presupposes this willing, available group of volunteers, right? And we did the pro bono surveys. Yeah. That we were a bit disheartened when there was lots of people saying, I do nothing. Yeah. I do 0 to 10 hours. And they're like, gee, what are we doing wrong from our perspective? How can we make pro bono more attractive? Mm-hmm. And I think that's, to me, that challenge is written nicely into this charge.
Yeah. So I think that's something that I think it would probably fall more under the pro bono committee, but I think it is coordinating with the legal aid committee, and how do we make this work better for everybody? And I know that part of that will require people to kind of look beyond their little fiefdoms and say, okay, I'm willing to give up control of something to make it work better for everybody. And sometimes it's hard. People feel very territorial about what they've accomplished and very protective of what they've accomplished. But I think you're right. If we're going to attract people, we have to make it easier to do that. And having a coordinated approach would help. Thoughts? All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to send around a survey and ask people to identify what subcommittees they would like to be on. We'd ask everyone to select at least one subcommittee. You're welcome to select more than one subcommittee if you want. And the survey will also ask you to identify people who aren't on the commission, who you think would be good members of this subcommittee, either the subcommittee you're interested in being on or another subcommittee. So, if you have a colleague at the law school who you say, you know what, I want to do this subcommittee, but this person would be really good on the pro bono committee, whatever, just, please do that so we can put together these subcommittees. I will, once we get all that information, we'll sit down and figure out, who, might be a good person to chair that subcommittee. And I will reach out and ask you to do it. And if you really don't want to chair the committee, just tell me that. That's okay. I won't take offense. But we'll try to get that together. And then what I would ask is that the subcommittee, each subcommittee try to meet once in September or October. And then we'll probably try to schedule our next meeting for maybe early November. So that maybe give the subcommittees time to meet, and then we'll meet as a group. I anticipate that the commission will meet 3-4 times a year, once every 3 or 4 months. That the subcommittees will meet at least once or twice in between the commission meetings, because I think that's where the primary work will be done. I'm going to try to attend as many subcommittee meetings as possible, just so there's somebody there who can say, well, this is what the other committee is working on, and you may want to talk to them about this, or have you guys thought about this? And just so we have some coordination of that, and I have some sense how we're doing with everything. So, so please, when you're setting your your subcommittee meetings, let me know. The other, there's some time with you guys want to spot on this, but I can't remember this from the last time we had subcommittees. Are the subcommittee meetings, we have to publish notice of the subcommittee meetings? PJ saying no.
Well, so we had a legal.
You're not an authority.
I know, but you've been on a lot of judicial branch subcommittees before, so. Because I think.
We're deciding how we're gonna answer,
Okay,
Yeah, so we have a legal, so that came up before. We have a legal opinion on that from our Judicial Branch Legal Services and Joe Campo, and it was actually Martin Libben at the time. And the answer was, it's a branch entity, but since there are external members and then subcommittees, we technically fall outside of FOIA. However, we're an access to justice commission, and the optics of not providing public access bad. So we, in the spirit of access, are complying with FOIA. So yes, we are.
So what we will do then is if subcommittees are scheduling a meeting, we'll ask the chair to just let Nicole know so that she can publish notice of the meeting, which would be members of the public will be invited and allowed to participate. Your meetings do not need to be in person though. They can be by video, whether we use Microsoft Teams in the branch. Although I do believe I was on a Zoom meeting yesterday, so for a while we weren't allowed to do Zoom, but we are allowed to do Zoom now. So if the chairperson was more comfortable using Zoom, the committee is more comfortable using Zoom, that's fine. We just have to provide a link and access to any member of the public who would like to attend the meeting. And then I guess the subcommittee would be expected to take minutes of the meetings as well, that we could then publish. Okay. Anybody have any questions about the subcommittees?
I have a comment for when we're thinking about people for the subcommittees, we should be diverse in terms of trying to reach the whole state.
Yes.
Sometimes we can be Hartford.
Perfect sense, guys. Yeah.
I do it all the time. But we should
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
try and make sure our committees are populated with representation throughout the state.
That's a very good point.
And then at some point, we'll need a subcommittee to plan the conference.
Correct. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that we would end up with a conference subcommittee, maybe depending on how we're progressing, or 6 months to 9 months from now. And when we're thinking about, I think Moy has a very good point about thinking about all parts of the state. So, not just Bridgeport and Stamford, but Danbury and Waterbury and Litchfield County and Windham County. Or we look up We are at least gathering information from all those parts of the state as to what the needs are and what the resources are. Anybody else?
Can I ask a question just about how in the past you have identified what the greatest needs are, and I assume it's relying on heading legal aid associations, but is there also access to judicial branch data about like what kind of cases people are representing themselves, are seeking, like, so each committee will have access to.
I'm saying sure. I mean, I know that in the past, we've run numbers and we know that, 95% of housing cases, except where we now have the right to counsel program, 95% of house cases, the defendants are self-represented. In probably 80% of family cases, there's at least one self-represented party. And I think my colleagues who sit on the family court would confirm that, right?
Yeah, it's 80%.
Yeah. And Walt, right? 90?
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, there's more now with but still, there's a lot of self-rep plaintiffs.
Yeah. So we do have some of those statistics, and we know that in collection cases, the vast majority of defendants are self-represented. We tried to address, or one of the issues we tried to address in that area is how do we deal with the defaults of failure to appeal? And a high percentage of judgments in those collection cases are based on failure to appeal.
There's also a decent number of prison initiated cases.
Yes.
That are self-help.
Yes.
And a federal court, of course, that you want to super use those, but the judges there are very aggressive about grabbing people.
Yeah. I know. A number of us in practice, we get calls. I think, a number of you probably still get calls from federal judges, and I had suggested in the past that maybe state court judges fit and I got shot down, but maybe Judge Bizzuto will have a different view of that. So yeah, there are those statistics and we can pull them together and make them available to the committees. Questions? We do have, and I think to Guy and Krista and PJ's credit, we have a lot of statistics in the branch. It's quite amazing. So I think that to the extent people want numbers on things, we can pull them together.
That's entirely why PJ is here, I think.
Yeah.
I know.
Anybody else have any thoughts on the subcommittees or other information you think would be helpful to have? Okay, all right, that's great. So schedule future meetings, as I mentioned, we'll schedule them every 3-4 weeks. I know this is a Hartford Central comment, but I think this is a good location to do the meeting just because you don't have to go into a city and deal with having to find parking. So if everybody's okay with that, we'll try to plan to have the meetings here. We have the technology stuff to set up, or that we can easily set up. My plan would be to do them on afternoons, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, if that works for everybody. Okay. And if there's, a day of the week that's particularly better than others, maybe in the survey, we'll include that in the survey as well. We'll ask good information about preferred meeting times and dates. And then, as I said, we'll try to get the surveys out to the subcommittees. We'll try to get the subcommittees set up in the next few weeks. Then the chair of the subcommittee each subcommittee can get a meeting plan for some time in the fall and get the work started. So that's all I have for today, unless anybody has anything else. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? All right, second. All right, all those in favor? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.